Hello everyone, welcome to this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. It's great to have you here with me today. We're going to be looking at two areas of concern. The first area is just off the southeast coast where we have a potential low pressure system hanging out here. This could develop potentially into our first tropical system as it moves throughout the Outer Banks here through the first part of Friday. Very heavy rain and a potential for a low center. And as we look across the southern Caribbean here, this spin up is still showing up on the GFS, and we're starting to see some action show up on the European model as well. So we'll be watching this potential spin up here into the western and northwestern Caribbean as we head throughout the second week of June. And I've got your complete severe weather and flood outlook for eastern North America as we go into a massively stormy weather pattern. Let's get into it. All right, so let's take a look at the tropics here. Our first area of concern is going to be off the southeast coast here, and here it is. As we go throughout June 4th into the 5th, it's going to pinwheel initially just slightly inland, so development might be a little bit slow here. But it's interesting, it's moving into this area of high pressure, and then we do start to see this storm trying to spin up towards the Outer Banks, right around late in the evening, Thursday, June 5th into the 6th here. This is where we could start to see this spin up and a low pressure taking form. Does it form a subtropical low or maybe even a tropical low? Depending on what happens here, this may end up being our first system, our first tropical storm of the season. We'll keep an eye on it here as it moves up along the east coast and kind of become absorbed eventually into the westerlies. Now, let's take a look here across the Caribbean. June 7th into June 8th. Here is our big ball of moisture, our big tropical wave. By this point, it looks like it's becoming a disturbance. Now, this is showing up a couple days sooner than it is on the European model. I'll show you the European. The European is hinting at something, but it's a couple days later. So look at this, June 8th into the 9th. I just want to zoom out. I want to show you the whole Atlantic here. One thing to note, high pressure way out here into the Atlantic. Since there's slower development down here, that could have implications as this high pressure moves away. Here's the intertropical convergence zone. It's almost in line with Trinidad and Tobago. So let's continue with this area of low pressure as it moves towards parts of Honduras and Nicaragua here, June 9th into the 10th. We start to see a low pressure take form here. So still, all in all, even though the development of this system has slowed slightly, it's only by about a day or two on average here. So the forward speed is the thing. The forward speed is not going to be as fast as originally thought here. So here we go. Lots of moisture. Maybe this can help Jamaica and the Cayman Islands get some moisture out of this. I know you need some rain. It's been so hot as of late. Dominican Republic through Haiti and parts of the Lesser Antilles, you're just seeing some scattered showers through this forecast period here. But look at this, June 10th into the 11th, this storm wants to hang out just north of Honduras. This is the problem now because the steering currents, since this has been delayed a couple days on average, we're starting to see this high pressure's influence kind of move away. And that's a little troubling because steering currents become very weak between June 10th and 15th. And I'm going to show you what I mean here because as you can see, there's pretty much no isobars, very little up here in the Gulf and the northwestern Caribbean. So as we continue through June 11th into the 12th, this storm, you can see, could end up producing tremendous rainfall for Belize, all the way up the Yucatan to Cancun, Honduras, Nicaragua here, and maybe extending eastward just west to Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. But look at this. This low just hangs out. That's the slow part now we're talking about, the forward speed of this low pressure system. And I'll show you on the European model momentarily in a couple minutes. It is also indicating a much slower evolution of the system. The Euro is actually showing it now, which is interesting. It was not before in the last several days. Watch down here, Trinidad, Tobago. It looks like you have a strong tropical wave moving through right around the 12th here. But look at this. This low is just bouncing around, stalling between Honduras and Belize and Cancun here. Tremendous moisture with this system. So a lot can happen this far out. We're about 250 hours out. So I urge you to stay tuned. We got plenty of time to watch this system. But one thing is for sure, the GFS has indicated a massive circulation with this storm, tremendous moisture. And honestly, it looks like this system has the potential to be a massive flood producer. So that is the disturbing thing. But here's that area of low pressure just moving very so slightly. And we do start to get this high pressure in the Atlantic exerting a little bit more force during this forecast period. Now we're starting to see towards June 15th into the 16th, it does start to lift this system a little bit more towards the northwest, more towards Cancun. Tremendous moisture getting up into parts of the Cayman Islands and Jamaica here. So the east side, tremendous amounts of feeder bands moving up through. And watch what starts to happen here. We almost have like a little inverted trough. So it almost seems like this system initially isn't fully tropical, but it definitely comes out of a tropical wave and a tropical disturbance here. So it's kind of interesting. It's one of those very strange systems, very large circulation. And as you can see towards June 17th, we start to move this up around the periphery of that high pressure, and it starts to retreat during this time. So ultimately, that means we could start to see weaker steering currents again. Here's the last frame of it. Yeah, this is one to definitely watch. We have a couple weeks to watch it here. The evolution of this system is a lot slower now. The forward speed is agonizingly slow. So as I said before, just a day ago, this was all the way over here in Texas and Louisiana. Now we're back to pointing it towards Florida. Let's take a look at the European model. All right, so let's take a look at the European model here. Thanks to tropicaltidbits.com. Yeah, so this is what we're going to be looking at initially. This right here, this potential system. We're going to watch for this, see if anything comes out of this as we continue to go out here in time. It is on our radar here, so to speak, so we'll watch it as it kind of pushes into this area of high pressure system. If it does develop, it'll likely be either a subtropical or a minimal tropical storm. I'm not expecting this to spin up. The big story with it is, though, and I'll go over those rainfall amounts, we could be having rainfall close to 5 to 7 inches in some of these areas across the especially coastal Carolina region. So watch out. Yeah, look at there. By Friday, June 6th, it does try to develop a low center right around the Outer Banks. So we'll watch it here, and then there's that low. So it could become our first tropical storm of the season. If that does happen, it would be Andrea. So we'll watch it here. Now, our attention will start to turn down towards the south here. You start to see this. This is the intertropical convergence zone. It does try to spin up some of these moisture plumes here. Also, another one southeastern Trinidad Tobago. Here's another one towards June 8th, towards Nicaragua and Honduras. So far, it looks like none of these are trying to develop into anything, but they're moving pretty far, quick to the west here at a good clip. So here's where we start to see something interesting on the European model here. June 10th, you see the surge of moisture. And here's a little area of low pressure trying to develop. And I want to draw your attention here. Two things. Here's that subtropical high that's keeping all this moisture moving west-northwest here. And look at down towards Trinidad Tobago southeastward here. That intertropical convergence zone is bouncing farther to the north here. Eastern Pacific is going crazy here with storms. We're going to start cranking out the storms. Now we start to see a little area of low pressure here in the far South Caribbean by the 12th and the 13th. And look at this by the 14th. We start to see a massive surge here across the southern Lesser Antilles from St. Vincent southward to Grenada here and Trinidad Tobago. Another area continuing across the extreme southern part of the Caribbean. And look at this, by June 15th, this is where the GFS really starts to show something. A lot of moisture pluming in here. Very strong tropical wave moving right towards Jamaica. This is kind of starting to line up with what the GFS has pushed out to this time period. So now we're starting to see something on the European model here. So very interesting. We could have some big time rains coming around the middle of the month here for Jamaica, potentially the Cayman Islands, and eventually Honduras here. Look at this. This is very interesting showing up on the European model. So we may have something here come the middle of the month. Now that we have more than one model indicating that something could potentially happen here. So a couple positive signals here. And taking a look at the Western Atlantic sea surface temperature. Oh, look at this. The Gulf is like bathwater, Northwestern and Western Caribbean. Look what's going on there, though. These areas below average. Yeah, look at that. Eastern Caribbean all the way through the Cape Verde areas. Yeah, this is where we're getting some a lot of dust that's really entraining it, and that's helping limit a lot of the sunshine from reaching the surface of the water. And the Western Caribbean here through Central America. Let's take a look. So through Friday here, you got Jamaica, Dominican Republic. You're not seeing too much, and I heard a lot of you say it's just getting so hot. It's time for some rain. Well, let's see if we can get you some rain. Now, look at Central America is getting a lot here, all the way up through Cancun. Parts of the Cayman Islands. But watch this. As we go through next week, are we going to see this tropical system bring us some beneficial rain? On the European, it's starting to look like it here. It's more later, but this is, kind of the time frame the GFS is showing this as well. So we're seeing this surge of tropical moisture, 100. Look at this. Some totals in excess of 200, 300 millimeters. Some of this will get towards Jamaica, 60 to as much as 190 millimeters here in the eastern end of Jamaica. So this is some good news to get you some rain. Dominican Republic, lesser amounts, but you will be 60 to 100 millimeters in some of these central and southern areas. So watch out. But look at Nicaragua here. Yeah, there's some areas that will approach 400 to 500 millimeters here. Honduras, there's a little bit of a rain hole here, so you'll get upwards 80, 100, 120 millimeters. Coastal Belize, upwards of 150 millimeters of rainfall. Cancun, you're looking at about 60 to 80 millimeters. All right, take a look at the GFS as far as we can make it here. Yeah, initially Jamaica not seeing much. This is some bad news because I know you definitely need the rain here, especially with how hot it's been. Dominican Republic, Haiti through Cuba, Northern Bahamas, this is where you're getting the rain here, up into Florida. Look at this, though. Right around the 10th, 11th, and 12th, this is where the GFS starts to show some development a little bit earlier than onto the European model by a couple days at least. But look at this. Eastern Yucatan Peninsula, this is where you could see upwards of 200 to 300 millimeters. Northern part of Honduras here, we're going to have to watch it because oh, wow, look at this. 500, 700, 800 millimeters. This is really bad. Some of this getting onto the northeast coast here of Honduras, so we'll have to watch that potential. The GFS showing kind of a rain hole here in central Jamaica, but eastern Jamaica upwards of 135 millimeters, but much of the island here struggling to get beyond, say, 20 to 40 millimeters here, with some areas closer to 60 to 80. So we'll watch it here. All right, so the Eastern Caribbean here, let's see what the European here is putting out. So, yeah, it's mostly light showers on these easterly trade winds through June 11th, 40 to 60 millimeters from the northern Lesser Antilles, Puerto Rico, about a quarter to a half an inch, and through Dominican Republic, 40 to 60 millimeters. But look at this. We get a surge of this intertropical convergence zone around the 14th, 15th, and 16th. And this is ultimately where we see Trinidad Tobago really moisten up here towards 90 to 125 millimeters. So watch out. It could be wet times ahead. And looking into the Eastern Caribbean here, this is where the surge of moisture will eventually come. As we get into the mid part of June, you can start to see some evidence here. Eastern part of the Dominican Republic through parts of Puerto Rico, some of these areas closer to 150 millimeters, upwards of 3 to 4 or 5 inches. Look at the Trinidad Tobago, though. This is when the intertropical convergence zone is going to get cranking come the middle of June, upwards of 100 millimeters in some areas. All right, so our future radar here for North America. Let's take a look at, our potential tropical system down here. This thing spinning up here around Florida as we go through noon hour on Wednesday. So you can kind of make out the center of circulation. It's right around Jacksonville here. You see these spiraling bands around it. And we're going to watch this. It's going to aggravate places like Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and eventually North Carolina here through 6 p.m., 7 p.m., through 9 p.m. on Wednesday evening. You can see lots of rain opportunities here for Florida, especially central and south Florida as these feeder bands get going on the east side. Now, you see the low pressure here, at least on our HRRR future radar here, the low pressure is initially centered right around Florence, South Carolina at noon hour on Thursday, June 5th here. So, this is going to be interesting. These last couple of frames you can see, depending on how close the center gets to land versus sea here, on this model, eventually the low will push off the outer banks here. So There may be a delayed part of development here, and then we may start to see development as models have pushed this storm further inland here. So initially, development chances have gone down a bit, but I still think this is going to emerge off the coast at some point, and we will likely see something try to develop here. All right, so as we go into the overnight hours of Tuesday night, look at this across much of the East Appalachians, north central Gulf Coast, all the way up to the Northeast, really nice. But look at the squall line out here. Dallas, Texas, really getting walloped down to Austin through the early morning and mid-morning hours of Wednesday here. So watch this. We're going to see a refiring of these storms on the north side through 11 p.m. on Wednesday through parts of Indiana, Illinois here. And then look at this. We get a few cells. It looks like they're pretty weak, though, into northern Ohio. This is through noon hour on Thursday, June 5th here. So we're still seeing some cells, but nothing widespread. Some more widespread development here from the mid-Mississippi River Valley down to Oklahoma. Before we get into for the tropical system along the East Coast, I wanted to show you quickly this little mesoscale system. Before we dive into more of the East Coast stuff, look how it travels from parts of Missouri June 6 into parts of Ohio. Look at this. This could be an interesting little feature, a little spin up here with some deep tropical moisture and some potential for some convection here as we head later on to Thursday night into early Friday here as this moves up into the Northeast. All right, picking up where our future radar left off here with our GFS model, you can see we're going to be all eyes on this potential system. Here is the GFS. This is what I was showing you beyond what the future radar could show us. There's that low emerging off the Outer Banks. This is the potential spin up that we could have with a subtropical or a tropical system here. You see this area of low pressure just off the East Coast. Watch out, because as we head through Friday and Saturday, rain and storms increase here. So yeah, things are going to be increasing as far as rain and storminess. And look at this, as we head through June 9th, we got another area of stormy weather here moving through parts of the Deep South. Also another area across the lakes into the Northeast, a big area of low pressure moving to the east here. We're going to watch out for some stormy conditions here as we head on into June 9th. So storms, severe storms here across much of the South. That's going to, look at this, area of low pressure developing, and we could have some heavy rain and thunderstorms June 10th riding along this into eastern Ohio, into Pennsylvania, maybe a squall line developing along this all the way down the East Coast for June 10th into the 11th. And then we start to see a surge of tropical moisture along this as well. So, yeah, lots of chances for rain here. And watch this big old blocking Bermuda high out here as it just sits out here. That's going to block a lot of these systems, kind of stall them along the East Coast, try to get these spin-ups going. So this time of year, you got to watch the tail end of these fronts for any spin-ups for tropical moisture. So, yeah, as we continue to go through the middle part of the month, big high setting up across eastern Canada. That will set us up initially with some nice weather here. But look what's on our radar down here. The GFS pulling this system north out of the Caribbean, our potential tropical storm, kind of inching it towards Florida here. We'll keep an eye on it. As I said before, all of the Western Caribbean and Gulf should be watching this system very closely. And with the European model here, let's take a look, see what we got going on. Here's that area of high pressure. We're going to go past where our future radar is, but ultimately we're going to see what happens with this potential, tropical system. It's there, and it's going to be hanging out across the Carolinas and North Florida here for a while, even close to this high pressure system. It's really remarkable how this is. So we'll continue to watch it here. Going to be some heavy rain, especially South Carolina, and eventually the Outer Banks towards Friday here. That's where we really get into the rainfall. Look at here on the northern edge, though, into northern Ohio. Some sort of a mesoscale convective system trying to take root here, potentially. Now, look at this. Yeah, there's an area of low pressure here. Will it be tropical or subtropical? That is the big question. This may be our first storm of the season. We'll have to keep an eye on it here. Ultimately, as we go through Saturday, look at early Saturday morning, there's convection from the mid-Mississippi River Valley all the way up into the Northeast here, Poconos, Catskills, and up into central New England and eventually northern New England. This low pressure may be tropical at this point or subtropical, but look at this. Even behind it, there is a lot of unsettled conditions here, a lot of tropical moisture just hanging out behind it here. And into Sunday and into Monday, you can see, look at this. This is a big upper level low. It's pinwheeling some sort of boundary here towards northern Ohio. We could get some strong to severe thunderstorms out of this into western New York and Pennsylvania by Monday here. So watch out as this frontal boundary moves through. Even down along the Gulf Coast, we could be getting some big gully washers and squall lines moving through here. So beneficial rain setting up here for Florida. Outer Banks getting clipped around early Wednesday next week. So we'll watch out for that, June 11th. But there it is as we continue to go out here in time. It's funny how there's a high pressure here, but there's so much rain here on the western side of it. You don't see the classic ring of fire where it's pretty much around the edges. We're actually getting a lot of shower and thunderstorm activity here closer to the high pressure center, which is kind of interesting here through June 14th. You can see these squall lines moving through parts of the southeast here, the Midwest, and the eastern Great Lakes. So we're going to watch out for trouble spots. It's a very active weather pattern as we continue through the middle of June. There is just so much rain to be had here. Look at this, the Appalachians all the way up through the interior Northeast. Lots of convection. Shower and thunderstorm activity continues. So unfortunately, we're just going to continue this rainy, stormy pattern. It just looks so much like a trough here, even into the Outer Banks and North Carolina, Virginia area. Very stormy through June 18th. And look at equivalent precipitation totals here as we go through the rest of the week into the weekend. Two big stories here through Saturday. Look at this. Big time storms across the midsection. And here's our potential tropical system we'll keep an eye on. Yeah, we could be looking at rainfall totals in the 1, 2, 3 with locally higher along the immediate coastline towards 4 to 5 inches potentially. And then as we continue through next week, through the middle part of the month, all the way through the 18th, look at this. If you're east of the Rocky Mountains here, look at all of this rain. It is rainy times ahead. Just so much. Everybody's averaging 2 to 5 inches in these orangish areas, closer to the 6 to 7. Even a lot of beneficial rain here for Florida. Look at though. Coastal Carolinas. Look at this with this potential tropical system. Yeah, we're looking upwards of 5, 7 inches in some of these areas. Watch out. All right, so for our GFS, we're going to take a look at rainfall amounts, at least the amounts we can get to paint here, as we're still having some of this spit out some data here on our latest run. But you can see here Sunday through Sunday, yeah, these Outer Banks down through parts of Florida. Some of these areas could get upwards of 3 to 6 inches, maybe a amount or two close to 7. And look at this up through the Ohio Valley, Northeast, Central Plains. We're looking at a generalized 1 to 2 inches. But look at this. All the way through the middle part of the month, we can get to the 13th on this model run. You can see, look at the East Coast, Southeast Coast here. Yeah, we're looking like a lot of rain really piling up, even interior here as well. All right, so I wanted to show you the vertically integrated and near surface smoke here. So this is the near surface smoke. So watch this. Yeah. Parts of the Midwest here, western Wisconsin, as we head into the overnight into early morning hours of Wednesday, and the Ohio Valley into parts of the Northeast, all the way down the Appalachians into parts of the Western Carolinas. This is where the smoke on Wednesday, even these green and yellow and orangish areas, this is where we're going to see a lot of smoke with these Canadian wildfires. Look what's right over the border there. So as we get this southwest wind kicking in, we're finally going to erode some of this later Wednesday night and Thursday, but it's going to be a slow process as we kind of work this smoke out. But you see the near surface smoke still around here in these green and slightly yellow areas. Now, if we take the whole column of smoke, yeah, it looks a lot worse here. So as we head into early Wednesday, you're going to see a lot of hazy skies. So if you're not seeing the near surface smoke, it's definitely a lot of haze. It's going to block out a lot of the blue sky. You're still going to have sunlight, but it's going to be filtered. But there it is as we head on into early Thursday. Still a lot of vertically integrated smoke here from the parts of the Ohio Valley into the Mid-Atlantic and into the Northeast here. And also up here into the Midwest. And before we continue with more weather coverage here, don't forget, if you made it this far in the video and you like it, smash that like button, everyone. It really does help. Question or comment down below. I love to read your questions or comments. And don't forget, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe bell notification button so you're alerted with all my future weather video updates, especially ahead of this active hurricane season. And don't forget, link of my 2025 hurricane complete forecast outlook, link in the description down below and also at the end of this video. Let's continue. All right, so let's take a look at your upper air pattern here on our European model firecracker ridge across the east. How long does that last? So let's take a look here. Yeah, not too long because, yeah, the weekend here. Yeah, it's time to get out that trough. You know how that goes. So especially the first half of the weekend is going to be rainy and stormy across the east. Now watch out for Monday and Tuesday next week. We get a big trough. This is going to pinwheel a series of storminess across the lakes, Ohio Valley, the Appalachians. It is just going to be so stormy. This ridge off the coast doesn't help us too much, even though it does try to pump up some, moist air here along with those higher temperatures. So at least we got that there. But yeah, for the most part, it does equalize out. But you see these lighter colors here? These are associated with some storminess in the area. So we're going to see some of these storms try to cut off a little bit, like this one up in the Canadian Maritimes through June 18th. All right, so let's take a look at the NAO index here. Yeah, this is where things are getting interesting. We're going to go positive, and then we're going to slowly go towards neutral come the middle of the month. And the MJO index here, yeah, active times are ahead. We are going toward from phase 5 into 6, 7, and 8. This is going to be a very stormy pattern here for eastern North America and the western Atlantic. So buckle up and watch out. Stormy times are ahead. All right, so our Canadian weather outlook here, let's start off with some beneficial rain here for southern Ontario, central Quebec here. Unfortunately, where you really need it, look at this out here. This is where a lot of the wildfires are burning. This is bad, initially. I got some good news. There are some cells that try to develop through parts of Alberta, Saskatchewan, later on Wednesday here. But look, for the most part, a lot of the rain is going to be either... We'd have some here in British Columbia and then a lot here into southeast Canada. Now watch this. Yeah, this is the start of some good news. There's a frontal boundary associated with a low pressure here, June 6th, that moves through Saskatchewan and then Manitoba. So some beneficial rain. The problem is we can't take much of the lightning here. So some of this will come with lightning here in southern Manitoba and western Ontario. Low pressure winding up across Quebec here. This is some good beneficial rain through June 8th. And then across southern Ontario. So lots of rain here. We're going to go over those rainfall amounts momentarily, but you can see there is some activity. There is some glimmers of hope here. It's just not this widespread soaking rain that you need, but we do get some areas through June 11th here. It is going to get much more active there. Look at this. This could be good if there's not a lot of lightning with it. Unfortunately, some of this could have, especially on the southern end, could have some lightning with it, so we got to watch out for that. But that's going to pull to the north here, and then look at this. Lots of generalized rain on the last frame across Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Alberta. And if you just back it up here, look at this. Southeast Canada just getting pummeled with these storms through June 11th here, right across southern Quebec. A little bit of a reprieve here, and then you get this big storm. This is likely going to track to the east as we go throughout the middle to latter part of the month. And look at equivalent precipitation here for Canada. As we put this into motion, you can see, yeah, we got a lot of dry conditions until the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, in where a lot of these wildfires are occurring. This is some great news come the middle of the month. The problem is there's going to be a lot more fires between now and then because there's a lot of dryness going on. Now, that's some great news, upwards of 40 to 80 millimeters here. Look at southeast Canada, though. A lot of this is racking up towards the second and third week of June. Some areas are approaching 125 to 150 millimeters across southern Ontario, Quebec, southern New Brunswick, and all the way through the Canadian Maritimes here. All right, so temperature-wise, it is going to be hot. Look at the 90s all the way up into the northeast here for your Wednesday. That is some really hot conditions. Looking into Thursday, still some 90s here into southeastern New England, Boston 94. We start to cool it off a bit behind this frontal boundary, so 70s. And look at this, the clouds and the rain across the Gulf Coast, upper 80s in many areas. Into Friday, we kind of push this temper air a little bit to the east, which is some good news. Help cool you off a little bit. Upper 80s continuing across the mid-Atlantic here up into parts of the interior, or I should say coastal Northeast. Saturday, June 7th here. Look at this. Wow. Lots of 90s here to the south. But look at up here into the Northeast, mid-upper 70s, a lot of mid-70s and some upper 70s here across the Midwest. Now watch this. As we get on into Sunday here, June 8th, you can see not too bad, very temperate across the east. And Monday, oh, look at the west out here, baking hundreds all the way up to eastern Washington state, 70s to the north here, and around 90. Oh, look at that, South Texas, San Antonio around 101. Extended forecast from our hometown viewers, Binghamton, Scranton, Upper Susquehanna, River Valley, New York, and Pennsylvania. Look at this Wednesday. We're going to see some widespread haze and potential smoke. Otherwise, sunny skies up towards 90 degrees, calm winds. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Thursday, chance of showers and thunderstorms developing in the afternoon, likely. So yeah, conditions will be going downhill. Probably another high near 90. Watch out. Some of these storms could be strong with damaging wind, large hail into Thursday night as well. But watch out into Friday here. Showers and thunderstorms, likely again, lesser chance of severe. Into Friday night and Saturday, more showers likely. We may eke out a good second half of the weekend, mostly sunny. Sunday into the mid-70s. Plenty more weather to come. Here is a look at my affiliate. Check out these awesome, amazing maps. I am proud to announce that I am now an affiliate with Trilogy Maps. TrilogyMaps.com, bringing you the most digital, customizable maps found nowhere else on the internet. These maps are simply stunning. It's an advanced layering system that makes these maps great for making forecast maps with ease or any other maps that you would like to display important information on. The resolution on these maps is simply amazing. From the detail of everything here in the States, and you can also create stunning, digital, professional layered maps from also across the entire world. And don't forget, in checkout, the discount code option, use my code, MeteoMark, hit apply, and you will get 20% off your order. So if you want the most professional, customizable, and affordable weather maps found nowhere else on the internet, look no further than TrilogyMaps.com. Link in the description down below along with your discount code. As always, thank you for joining me for this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Also, don't forget to join me on Facebook at MeteoMark, also Weather Northeastern, also Twitter at Weather Eastern. Don't forget it's MeteoMark.com, and don't forget, if you want to send me a coffee, there is a link, super thanks. You can smash that super thanks button or my PayPal link in the description down below. You can buy me a cup of coffee. Thanks everyone. Share that video, subscribe if you haven't, smash that like button.